teaching in general is not easy, especially when you need to bring the message across to the person who's learning it. I don't think I have the patience. I think it takes a lot of patience as well. But we have just the right guest on our show today, as she has taught so many foreign students all around the world. So she will be on the show. It's not easy because in communication, when language is a barrier, so it's not easy. So take a look at this. Yes, today it's all about English, and I have a very special guest with us. We have Judith Dillon, and she's an English language instructional specialist and ELS teacher. Welcome on the show.
Thank you.
And of course, welcome to Malaysia.
Yes, I've never been to Malaysia.
You've never been to Malaysia?
No, but I am totally enthralled.
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 It took you a long journey to get here.
Well, yes, Chicago, Heathrow,
yes,
KL, and I've also been to Penang.
Penang, wow,
yeah.
that's awesome.
And before I leave, I'm going to go down to Johor Bahru.
Nice, so you've been traveling all around the world.
Right.
So maybe you can tell us a little bit why you're actually here in Malaysia.
Well, the reason for me being here is interesting. I work for an intensive language program in the United States, in Oklahoma, and they have centers around the world. And one of the centers in the world is a center right here in KL and Penang and down in JB.
That's right.
And they wanted me to come because I won an award 2 years ago.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I somehow I won this award for being a teacher who was excellent in her field.
I'm sure.
And that included not only teaching in the classroom, but also doing professional development, being on the boards of both TESOL, if you know what that is, and then the state level organization. Plus, I do some administrative work. In other words, I'm a jack of all trades.
You're a jack of all trades, but you specialize, obviously, in the English language.
Well, I specialize in students.
In students, that's right, because it's not easy teaching someone a language. So tell me, how is it teaching English to foreign students?
Well, where I teach, most of our students are not completely beginners.
All right.
Most of them have come, say, from Malaysia, Vietnam, China.
Yes.
And they come to the United States with a certain amount of foreign language.
Foreign language.
They've learned it maybe in high school, perhaps even in university.
So they have the basic
They have the basic. The thing that most Asians lack is the ability to speak, because they've never had to do it, and the ability to listen.
All right.
So that's what we work on a lot. We test them when they arrive.
Yes.
And if their reading and writing is good, vocabulary development is fine, and pronunciation is okay, then we probably know that they need a little bit more confidence. Basically, it's confidence.
Basically communicating with people.
That's right.
Right? I think, like you said, sometimes people have good written...
they can read and they can write, and they know vocabulary, but then putting that all together in an oral package, just having a conversation like we're having right now, that's very, very difficult, especially for Korean students, Japanese students. I found that the other Asian countries have to use English a little bit more. For example, in Malaysia.
In Malaysia, that's true.
Yeah, you obviously, it's more than a second language. It's kind of like a language and a half, you know? And so I wouldn't have to do as much here if I were teaching your students in Malaysia. But say you're a Japanese student who never speaks English.
At all?
They're extremely reticent.
Do you find that in Malaysia, like because of, like you say, we can't speak English, is it easier teaching Malaysian students to speak?
It would be, because well, first of all, their fear level is lower because they've had practice. Even if they've got fossilized English, and what that means is that they've made mistakes over and over and over again, they don't recognize them as mistakes.
They don't,
Right. So the fossilized English would be a problem, but the other things, once you bring it out, they should be able to pretty quickly.
Pretty quickly adapt.
Adapt and get to be better.
I think it's all about practicing, right? Not being afraid.
Probably that's true.
Yeah.
I was at a conference last week, the iCelt. I don't know if you are aware of
Yes.
it. It was up at the Swiss Garden Hotel in Lemut.
Oh.
And there were 800 plus teachers there.
Wow.
And that was exciting.
It was.
It was because these are the people who are in the trenches.
Mm-hmm.
These are the public school teachers. Some of them came as far away as the East Coast of Malaysia, just for professional development. And it was wonderful talking to them and listening to their problems.
And I can see the passion that you have here.
Yeah.
So what brought you to actually have this career in teaching English? And
Well, that's a long
you
story.
started 30 years ago, I heard?
Well, actually more than that.
More than that, in Oklahoma, right?
If you're too young, but if you read your history books, there was a war that the United States fought with the Vietnamese, the North Vietnamese. It was the South versus the North, and we took the South side. And what happened in that war was really terrible for my country. After a couple of years, most people, including myself, decided the war was a bad idea, that we should not have been in a place where we really had no business being.
Yeah.
And people my age, we were just 21 years old.
That's right.
We decided that we needed to show the world that we weren't all horrible people.
Yeah.
That we weren't the military,
No.
we were just people.
That's right.
And so I joined an organization called Peace Corps.
All right.
You used to have Peace Corps in Malaysia a long time ago. I joined it to be an English teacher, and they sent me to Africa.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I was in Africa for 2 years, teaching English as a foreign language.
Yes.
And my motivation for going was to do good and be a goodwill ambassador.
That's awesome.
So I started my career that way in 1970, and I've done this ever since.
You've been all around the world. Well, we have to
Yeah.
go for a short break,
Okay.
and
All
we'll
right.
talk more to you. It's
Okay.
really interesting. I'm so interested. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
I do.
I've been speaking English all my life.
I do think in English, so it'll be my first language. Yes, and I think it is very important that we know English because a big part of the world, the population in the world, do speak English. Is one of the oldest language in the world.
English remains the most important language, common language in the world.
The English language is very important. I believe it is very, very, very important. It's bad, Nelly, it's bad.
I do not believe that's true. I do not have the figures. I can't say it outright, but I don't think that is true at all.
In some ways, to be honest with you, locally, it's quite valid.
Although we speak a different type of English, it's still English. You know, it's a little mangled, but it's still English.
Yes, some little dispute over there about Nelly's comment that only 50% of Malaysians actually understand English. I have my guest here with me again, Judith Dillon, and of course Robert Brander. He's the Vice President Operations of ELS Malaysia. Welcome on the show. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for inviting me.
So what do you think of the comment just now? I mean, obviously you heard some of our local people saying that they do speak English, they think in English. What about the comment from obviously an American performer here in Malaysia saying that he thinks only 50% of people speak in English? What do you think about that comment?
Well, I think that that's maybe the perception because, you know, a lot of Americans don't come over here. As Judith said, or Judy said, this is her first trip.
That's true.
And there's not a lot of news about Malaysia and about the English situation. Like we were talking earlier, in this area, like Vietnam or Thailand or different areas, English isn't as widely spoken, and there's not as much English exposure as there is here in Malaysia. So, especially the urban areas, English is very widely spoken and understood.
Yeah, you can actually go anywhere and most people would be speaking in English. And do you think that Malaysian symbolizes the English language as intelligence and the power of knowledge?
That's a good question. It's a little bit different. I think that, actually, I think previously it was maybe, you know, in the 60s, 70s, it was very status, you know, because maybe, you know, with the British influence previously, and especially if you spoke with a British accent.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting.
It would be very,
that's
you know, high status. then it kind of, English kind of, wasn't so important as perhaps, or thought not to be as important. I think today with the younger people, it's more economic, global, like, I just, if in KL everything's fast-paced.
That's very true.
And you see, it's amazing for me sometimes, you see people switch. They'll be speaking Cantonese or Hokkien or Mandarin, and they'll switch to English, and then they'll
That's very
switch
true. I guess because in Malaysia, like my cousins...
Malaylish.
Yes, that's true. And we add in our little short forms and stuff.
I have noticed that.
Yeah.
I'm new here, so...
You're new here. How do you find that? I mean, do you think there's anything wrong with doing that? Like just adding our little...
No. As a matter of fact, English does not belong to any one country or countries. English is global.
Global. It's
For
international.
example, when you see TV in the evening where they're showing you Northern Africa with all the uprisings, guess what? Those signs that they are carrying often say freedom. That's an English word.
Yeah.
So English has become the language of the world. And I will say this, the Chinese definitely know that.
Yeah.
Right now, all children in elementary school start English.
Start English.
Because they realize, even though there are more Mandarin speakers, they already know that the language that the world wants to be the lingua franca is English.
Which is definitely true. I guess because English, honestly, there's not so much of a, like Chinese, there's a lot of tune if you had to learn that. So it's harder for foreigners to actually learn, let's say, Mandarin or something like that. So English is definitely a more accessible language, would you say?
Well, because you can get on the telephone. You can be a worker in New York City.
Yes.
And somebody calls you, and they're not from Oklahoma. They might be from Kuala Lumpur.
Kuala Lumpur, that's right.
And they're having business conversation, and the only language that's going to work for both parties is English.
English.
So that's going to be, I think, the future until something comes along and changes all that.
That's right.
Which means we teachers are not going to lose our jobs.
Definitely. But looking like you, obviously English language school that you have here in Malaysia.
Right.
What do you think is the main difficulty of the Malaysian students that you find the most common thing?
Pronunciation is one.
Well, in Malaysia, actually, I feel like in the urban areas like Kuala Lumpur, Penang, or that, it isn't a great big problem.
Yeah, it's
I
not
mean,
great.
because the kids know that they can kind of see the need because it is kind of, it's so metropolitan. I mean, they're exposed to the television, to the radio, to the music. But it's the rural areas.
That's true.
We do have connection, like at ELS, we do work with different areas, and I've gone out into some of the rural areas, and it is so difficult for some of the teachers to motivate and to kind of show the students the need.
To actually
I mean, they're thinking they're in, Terengganu or different areas, or Kota Baru, and they're thinking, why do I need to learn English? And that is the hard part that the teachers have, I think.
Yeah.
Well, this was a big thing.
Okay, we have to go for a short break, but we'll come back with that talk. It sounds interesting, so don't go anywhere.
Everyone need English? What about housewives?
Look at these. These are kind of like celebrity citrus.
Oh boy, okay.
For all that I call this a lemon polenta cake.
Huh? Lemon polenta cake?
A lemon polenta cake.
Susah lah tak faham English ni. How about working professionals?
I'm here to present you. Who hits come from the littlest of ideas.
Now what about students?
Muddle. There's some over our bookings. Baca kamus pun tak faham.
So, what do you think?
There you have it, a little bit of humor. We're laughing on set. I'm here with my guests, Robert, Brenda, and Judith Dillon. They're having a good laugh. Well, we don't want to laugh about it, but it's a reality in some cases in Malaysia. And what do you think about that little reenactment there, about the housewife, the professional, and the student?
We see it every day in our classrooms, and that's what we're there. But I laugh. But you laugh together.
We laugh together.
Partly our job, why we like it. We've both been involved in it for so long, is because it is fun. And Judith's just done some workshops about how a teacher, an English teacher, you have to be a little bit of an actress or an actor, or you know,
frustrated actress.
Yeah.
I can go sit there and you can go sit.
Yeah, it's very interesting because you need patience. But I like that, like you said, being an actress, you got to be more. It can't just be.
You have to be dynamic, dynamic in the classroom to hold their attention. In addition to knowing that more than one activity for one class is almost a given with today's young people. Think about media. Think about cell phones, texting.
Yeah.
It has to be quick. It has to be quick.
That's right.
And so if you've been a teacher a long time, you have to factor that into your lesson plan.
So with that, the teaching part, and then what's the easiest way for people to actually practice English, or the easiest way to learn?
That sometimes is
Intensive,
a bit of a problem
Depending.
in that, you know, we try to tell our students to go out and use it, but, or to talk, you know, at lunchtime amongst themselves, but they won't do it.
They won't
So
do it.
if you're actually here in, like in Malaysia, the easiest actually is, of course, go to the States or England or that way, whenever they finish their lesson, they have to use it outside the classroom. But here in Malaysia, like the company I work for, ELS, we have a 6 hours per day English. So it's total immersion.
Wow,
You study 8:30 to 3:30.
Yeah, they don't. We
Every
only
day.
teach the
That's
target
very
language.
different.
5 days a week.
That's
and
really different.
Plus you have homework in the evening.
Which is great, yeah.
So you start to think in
It's quick.
English.
It's
and-
quick.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
quick.
Because, like you said,
Immersion.
Malaysia has so many different languages.
Yeah.
So when you get out of obviously the school, you
Yeah.
go home, you're either speaking Cantonese or
right.
Malay, so hence you don't get to practice at home.
Yeah, and
So-
we do, and then we have homework, and even some of the homework might be watch the
That's great.
weather in English or the news, or the guys always say sports. Watch
Which
it,
is true.
And then tomorrow tell me some of about the football games
Yeah.
because Malaysia football, you know. Like,
That's great. Have you ever encountered people who actually can't really speak English, but they put on an accent? Okay, I know Malaysia has an accent, but they put on, let's say, American accent or a British accent.
Aussie.
Okay.
What
to
do you
try
think?
and cover
Yes.
up the
What do you
fact
think
that they
about
don't.
that?
Oh, well,
what's the
that's
reason?
too bad. That's too bad.
No,
Really, what they should do
They do it to show off.
is to try and learn the basics.
The basic.
And to be themselves.
I agree.
Why shouldn't Malaysian English be as good as any other
Exactly.
English?
Yeah.
It is. And therefore, I think people who put on an air just to pretend that they're
I know.
English speakers is crazy.
It's funny. It's like as if it's a status thing. Like
Oh,
like a
that's
friend that
status,
goes to Australia for 3 months comes back and goes, "Hi, Mike, I'm doing fine." And you're like, "What? You can't just put on an accent like that, you know?"
I've heard that before. Like,
Right?
I hear them talking to somebody else and there's nothing there, and then as soon as they talk to a foreigner,
Exactly.
it comes out and they're going, "G'day, mate." And I'm
G'day,
going,
mate.
I'm not
Oh,
Australian.
I've had that before where, because I'm mixed culture as well,
Yeah.
English. So someone comes up to me with an American accent, and then once they hear me speaking my Malaysian accent, they slowly get back into their Malaysian accent. I find that funny.
No,
Yeah.
today
Well, isn't that interesting that they can flip?
They can
Yeah.
flip.
They can flip
They've
it.
learned, instead
Wow.
of learning good English, they've learned the accent. They
instead.
think that's enough. But, you know, today it's changed. Like, we're really pushing, like, communication. And it doesn't matter so much, like Judy was saying about, say, the accent, but having acceptable, like,
Having
pronunciation.
clarity,
so we can
idea.
understand, and
Exactly,
that's okay.
yeah. As long as like they can, like I recently went to this supermarket and I just asked someone, where's the bread? And they panicked.
Yeah.
And it's a local person, they don't even understand. And I think, do you think it's a fear sometimes for them
yeah.
to actually talk?
Yeah,
Maybe
no.
in school they're scared they might get tormented or bullied if they speak.
Well,
funny.
that's, especially in the rural areas, I talked to English teachers in the rural areas, and they would ask me, what can I do when I know this student is like an A student, but he pretends he can't understand because he'll be bullied if he shows that he can speak English. And that's a difficult problem.
That is a difficult problem.
I said you have to kind of get the others on his side. Like I
Exactly.
used to tell them, you know, I asked little kids, you know, when you finish school, do you want to drive a motorcycle or a nice car? And they're all going, oh, a nice car. And I said, well, if you speak a bit of English, maybe you can get a job at an international
Which
company.
is true, exactly.
Make money.
So it's a kind of motivation to give
You have
to
to
your
see
students.
how to motivate people.
Definitely.
A lot of kids, they're more interested in their girlfriends or boyfriends. And
That's true.
Right. And of course,
difficult for the
with tests
teachers.
being the way they measure everything,
True.
students will only learn for the test.
Yes.
That's right.
And
that's
yet
Parent learning.
they don't understand that when they get out and get that first or second job, they're going to be required to know something.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
totally agree with you. Like, I mean, in school, sometimes, like you say, you're just learning to learn for the exams. And once they go to university or college, I find a lot of Malaysian students struggle. And they're with their dictionaries. They're really hardworking, but they struggle.
Well, that's true everywhere.
Yeah.
See, I've traveled a little, and I
Yes.
can tell you, your country is not unique.
not as, yeah.
This is a problem everywhere. The electronic dictionary comes out, and the head goes down, and then real communication disappears.
Yeah. So, any last words for people out there about
Keep
English?
studying.
Keep studying. Don't be afraid.
Yeah, confidence is a lot.
Confidence.
Like Judy said, like a lot of the kids have learned for many years, but they're not using it, and often it just takes a little bit of
Push
understanding and a push,
motivation.
and they'll start using it,
Yeah.
and then everybody's going, whoa, you know. that's
Getting
pretty
that
good.
girlfriend or boyfriend,
Boyfriend, yeah.
with a different language background
To learn.
is amazingly fast.
I like that. So that's a final tip for everyone. Thank you so much, Judith. Thank you so
You're
much,
welcome.
Robert, for being on the
Okay,
show.
welcome.
That's
you.
all we have for today. And of course, ladies out there, whether you're a housewife or professional student, don't be shy. Just practice English, have the confidence. And of course, tomorrow we have Bella Fashion and Beauty as well. So we have a lot going on at that show. And of course, for those of you who've actually entered the Westlife concert contest, we have that coming on. We'll be announcing the winners on this week, and we have a little surprise for you. And of course, for those of you who have not bought the tickets, we have all the information on the screen right now, so it's going to be a fun one, definitely. So that's all we have for today. Thank you so much to our guests once again. I'm Vanessa Chong signing off. Bye.